as Congress tries to grapple with their intentions of repealing and replacing the Affordable Care Act, Donald Trump has decided that, he hasn't really figured out what he wants more, and any option that goes against the Affordable Care Act is a good option for him. So during Trump's interview with the New York Times, he explained some of the difficulties involving the repeal and replace plan for the Affordable Care Act. And in doing so, he attempted to detail what he thinks healthcare is, but he kind of showed that he's a little ignorant on healthcare policy. So if you don't believe me, I'm gonna read you his response to the New York Times verbatim. He said, as they get something, it gets tougher because politically you can't give it away. So pre-existing conditions are a tough deal because you are basically saying from the moment the insurance, you're 21 years old, you start working and you're paying $12 a year for insurance, and by the time you're 70, you get a nice plan. Here's something where you walk up and say, I want my insurance. It's a very tough deal, but it is something that we're doing a good job of. What? I don't know. There are parts of that answer where I don't even know what he's talking about. The notion that when you're young and healthy, you only spend $12 a year, not even $12 a month. He said $12 a year on insurance is absurd. And then he thinks of insurance, the way that he spoke about health insurance sounded like he was confusing it for life insurance.
Right.
And you hear those life insurance commercials on CNN, along with super beta prostate commercials where they're like, yeah, $12 a month. And then by the time you're like ready to die, we're gonna give you $500,000. So he thinks that's the way it works.
Yeah, because that's where he gets his information, from the cable news.
Oh my God, it's terrible.
No, it's he was completely at sea as to what he was talking about. And then, as Anna says, he was obviously confusing health insurance and life insurance. He certainly doesn't know any specifics, and we'll get to that in a second about the health care bill. He doesn't know many specifics about many things. Remember, this is a president who is briefed in one-page briefings, preferably those that include his name repeatedly. This is not me just being cute. This is literally what they do at the White House. So it doesn't surprise me that he's adrift on this.
Right, and he's not a fan of briefings. He's been pretty clear about that. And it's obvious in his answers to some of these questions. But what's interesting is, when someone gets to a point where they feel confident enough to run as the leader of this country and one of the most powerful people in the world, you would think that they would just know how the world works, at least a little bit. And it seems like he's completely oblivious to some of the most important components of our lives. But he is also oblivious in regard to his own ignorance. In fact, he thinks he's super intelligent on this topic. He says so himself. He says, these guys couldn't believe it, talking about members of Congress and people around him, how much I know about it. I know a lot about healthcare. No, you don't. No, you don't. You never talk about details or specifics. And then when you make the mistake of doing so, you sound like you don't know anything at all.
Yeah. Look, he is not short on confidence. He's an egomaniacal megalomaniac, right? And he just can't wait to tell you how great he is. In fact, it's probably the only thing he can speak with some authority on. Everything else is being brought to him. He's simply the pretty face of this presidency. And that's the key thing to remember here. This is a popularity contest, and Anna mentioned it a moment ago, and I thought it's a good point. How can anyone ascend to this level and not have some working understanding of government or policies or how things work? Well, because of the way we elect presidents this way, in this time, in this culture, in this moment, because it's a popularity contest. And one thing he does well, and I've said it before here, he messages so effectively. And there are people who drink in that message. And it's a cult of personality. So from his standpoint, all he has to do is deliver that cult of personality, and that's what he does.
That is what he does. Also, he doesn't really know when Congress votes on anything. So I want to give you this exchange with the reporter, Maggie Haberman. He says, well, I say, let's not vote on repeal. Let's just vote on this. So first, they vote on the vote, and that happens sometime Friday? Maggie Haberman responds, next week. Or Monday? Monday. And then they'll vote on this and we'll see. We have some meetings scheduled today. I think we have 6 people who are really sort of okay. They're all good people. We don't have bad people. I know the bad people. Believe me, do I know bad people? Oh my God. Okay, well, if you're not alarmed by his lack of knowledge or his ignorance on this incredibly important issue, you're not alone, because Senator Bill Cassidy feels the same way. Take a look.
So then in your conversations with him, do you think the president understands the political, the policy intricacies of this bill?
I don't think it's important for him to understand the policy intricacies of this bill. What's important for him is to understand the principle. His principle is that there should be a replace associated with repeal.
Okay.
That's exactly what we were just talking about,
Yeah.
right? It's not important that he understand it. It's just important that he beat Trump, that he lean into these people and say, hey, look, we've got a price to pay if you don't, if you don't follow along with the White House script. Yeah, it's completely disheartening to see the GOP fall in line behind this guy.
Yeah, fall in line, especially when it comes to something that has to do with life and death situations, something that so many Americans rely on, depend on, and need real leadership on. And for them, it's just a game of patty cakes. For them, this is all fun and games, and it's pathetic, to say the least. To
play party politics with these things that affect so many lives. And he's such a populist president in that weird way. In other words, he rode to power on the backs of so many people who need health care and really need government help. It's the true irony. It's been made at that point time and time again. But as Anna says, this is a community of Americans that is going to be dropping through the floor if they roll back what's on the books.
If you like this video, you probably like independent media. The best way to support independent media, become a member of the Young Turks. TYTnetwork.com/join.